The cradle said Munro was dead before the stretcher team got the strap off his chest. I didn't look up from the intake board. 6 years running triage admin at Calder's Reach teaches you which alarms to trust and which ones are just a machine being honest about its own ignorance. This was the second kind. I kept stamping manifests. Petty Officer Cruz. Dr. Vren's voice carried the particular strain his species used for distaste. 4 eyes, none of them blinking in sequence, all 4 fixed on the readout. Your animal's cardiac signature has ceased. Respiration nil for 40 seconds. I am required to log this. Log it, I said. That stopped him longer than the flatline had. Vren had been station physician at the Reach for 2 years, long enough to know I didn't say things I didn't mean, and not long enough to know what I meant by this one. Munro lay on the gurney where the search team had set him down, tree-color coat matted with ash from the collapsed relief dome, ears flat against the table. 13 years old. Retired out of the Corps 4 years back with a knee that clicked on cold mornings and a nose that hadn't slowed down a single percentage point. He'd gone out at 0600 with the dome rescue crew because the structural engineers couldn't get a reading through the rubble and somebody had to, and he'd come back at 0640 carried, not walking. The cradle's display ran a long flat green line and a word in coalition standard that translated, roughly, to asterisk concluded star. 41 seconds, Vren said. 42. Petty Officer, I understand the animal is yours, but grief does not change a cardiac trace. I need authorization to begin tissue preservation before. No. The window for viable. No, I said again, and signed the next manifest, and slid it into the outbox. He made a sound I'd come to recognize after 2 years working under the man. Not anger, something closer to the noise a machine makes when you ask it to divide by 0. His 4 eyes did their strange independent thing, 2 on me, 2 on Munro, like he was trying to hold both facts in front of him at once and they wouldn't sit together. A junior tech named Sarel, slate-skinned, young enough that his carapace hadn't fully hardened yet, came around the partition with a cold storage tray and stopped 2 steps short of the gurney. Doctor, he looked at Munro. Looked at me. Her dog is dead. That is what the instrument says, Vren said. Then why is she still? Sarel didn't finish it. He didn't have a word for what I was doing, which was nothing. Sitting at the admin desk. Stamping manifests. Not crying, not gripping the gurney rail, not demanding a second opinion or a specialist or a miracle. Just working, the way I worked every other morning, 14 feet from a dog the cradle said had stopped. I want to be clear that I felt every second of it. I am not telling you I was made of stone. I'm telling you what stone looks like from the outside, because that's what they saw, and it's what made the whole next 20 minutes happen the way it happened. The dome rescue had gone out because a relief shelter on the East Ridge, 60-some refugees and a 4-person coalition medical team, had gone dark after a methane pocket let go under the foundation. No signal, no beacon, structural sensors useless through the slag. Calder's Reach didn't have the equipment to punch a reading through that kind of debris. What it had was a 13-year-old Beagle with a nose that had found 3 buried avalanche victims back on Earth before he ever left atmosphere, and a harness-mounted camera that fed straight back to my desk. He'd gone in. He'd found something. The feed showed 41 seconds of him moving low and steady through a gap in the slag, head down, before the dome's residual heat killed the signal and the rescue team pulled him out unconscious from gas exposure, the same gas that had taken the shelter down. They'd carried him back because his legs wouldn't hold him. That was all. His legs wouldn't hold him, the way they hadn't held him after the second avalanche either. The time Doc Halvorsen back at Fort Bragg had stood over him with a stethoscope and the same look Vren had now. 48 seconds, Vren said. He was watching the chrono now more than the readout. Petty Officer Cruz, I am not asking you to be at peace with this. I am asking you to let me do my work. There may be a transplant candidate on this station who... His heart's not stopped, I said. It's just slow. The instrument reads 0. The instrument's calibrated for you. I finally looked up. Not for him. Vren's mouth, the lower mandible, the one he used for human register speech, opened and didn't immediately produce anything. I'd worked 2 years under this man. He was a good physician, careful, methodical, had pulled 4 colonists through sepsis that should have killed them on a backwater posting like this. He had never once treated an Earth animal, because Calder's Reach didn't get Earth animals. It got working dogs on loan from Corps kennels for exactly this kind of search, and then it got their handlers standing in his triage bay refusing to authorize a death. That was when Station Commandant Yul came through the partition, drawn by whatever Sarel had said over the comm before he'd thought better of it. Yul outranked everyone in the bay including me, and he had the look of a man, a being, who had already decided this conversation was a formality. Petty officer. He didn't look at Munro at all. He looked at the chrono, and at me. I'm told you're declining authorization on a confirmed mortality. I'm told this twice now, in fact, because apparently once wasn't sufficiently clear. He folded the upper pair of arms behind his back, the posture he used for closing things out. We have a colonist 3 berths down who may need cardiac tissue and a window that is, by Dr. Vren's own numbers, closing. I respect what the animal did this morning. I am not going to let respect cost a human life. It won't, I said. You don't know that. I know him. I didn't raise my voice. There wasn't anywhere in me to raise it from. You're asking me to sign off on a guess dressed up as a protocol. I'm telling you the guess is wrong. If you want to override me, you can, but you'll be doing it on your authority, not mine, and you'll be doing it to a dog who has never once given this station a reason to doubt him. Yul's mandible worked once. A tell I'd learned over 2 years meant he was recalculating. He didn't override me. He also didn't leave. He stood at the foot of the gurney with his arms folded, the chrono climbing past the minute mark behind him, the kind of man who'd made his decision and was now simply waiting to be proven right. Explain, Vren said into the silence. Not an order. He didn't have the rank structure for that with me, and he knew it. A request. Deathworld bradycardia, I said. It's not a disease. It's what the heart does when the body's under enough stress that slowing down keeps you alive longer than speeding up would. Cave divers do something like it. Seals do it diving. Dogs bred and run hard enough for generations do it without trying. His resting rate on a calm day is 40 beats a minute, which I'd guess already reads strange to your instruments. Under gas exposure, exhaustion, and whatever that dome's atmosphere did to him on the way down, that rate can drop low enough that your cradle calls it 0. It isn't 0. It's just slower than your hardware bothered to model, because nothing in your registry needed it to. That is not in any veterinary file I have access to. You don't have a veterinary file for him. You have a search and rescue manifest that lists him as cargo. I said it without heat, because there wasn't any heat in me about it. Calder's Reach didn't carry vet staff, and Munro's intake paperwork had always run through livestock and working animal logistics, filed somewhere between generator parts and water purification tablets. Nobody's fault. Just the shape of a frontier relief post that had never needed to think hard about what an earth dog's heart was supposed to do. Sarel was still holding the cold storage tray like he'd forgotten what it was for. 55 seconds, Vren said, quieter now. I went back to the manifests. Not because I'd stopped caring what the chrono said. Because 13 years of this dog had taught me exactly one thing worth knowing, which is that he had never once needed me to panic on his behalf, and panicking now wouldn't move the countdown any faster than it was already moving. It moved. At 1 minute 6 seconds, the line on the cradle's display, the long flat green one Vren had been ready to sign off as asterisk concluded asterisk, kinked. A small irregular tick, then another, spaced wrong for anything the machine had a name for, and then a third that landed close enough to a rhythm that the cradle's own software flagged it as an artifact and tried to filter it out. Don't filter that, I said. Vren's hand was already moving to override the filter before I'd finished the sentence. For eyes on the screen now, all of them. Yul uncrossed his arms. The tick steadied into something slow and even and entirely unhurried, the kind of rhythm you'd call a resting heartbeat if you'd ever met one before. Munro's ribs rose, fell, rose again, each breath visible if you knew to look for it and invisible if you didn't, which was exactly why the gas had read him as gone in the first place. His ears didn't move. His eyes stayed shut. He did not, in any sense that would have satisfied an audience, look like a dog coming back from anything. He looked like a dog asleep on a porch in the sun, the way he'd looked every afternoon of his retirement before some idiot relief shelter decided to come down on top of 60 people. That is 41 beats a minute, Vren said, reading the new number off the corrected display like it was a foreign script. Sustained. That's Tuesday, I said. Sarel set the tray down. Carefully, like he was embarrassed by having ever picked it up. Yul didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he said, to no one in particular, I'd have signed it, which was as close as I ever heard the man come to admitting a mistake out loud, and walked back through the partition without another word. I didn't hold it against him. He'd been reading the only numbers anyone had given him. Petty officer. Vren's voice had lost the strain it carried at the start. The harness camera. Before signal loss, there was a gap in the debris he was navigating. I assumed it was structural noise, a void in the slag with no bearing on survivors. Should I have assumed that? I pulled the feed back up on the admin board. The 41 seconds I'd already watched 11 times waiting for Munro to either wake up or not. Reran it slower. The gap he'd gone into wasn't a void. It had airflow. You could see the ash shift at the edges of the frame, drawn inward, the unmistakable signature of a pocket somewhere below still breathing for itself. He hadn't gone in chasing rubble. He'd gone in chasing air movement that meant something on the other end of it was using up oxygen, which meant something on the other end of it was alive. The relief team found the shelter survivors 4 hours later, 11 of them, in a collapsed stairwell exactly where that air pocket led, 60 feet past the point the structural sensors had called the dome a total loss. Vren didn't apologize. I didn't expect him to. The man had read his own instruments correctly. The instruments had simply never been built to read Munro. What he did instead, an hour later, after the cold storage tray had gone back to wherever trays go and the relief team had radioed in the survivor count, was come stand at the gurney while I changed the gauze on Munro's forepaw where the slag had cut him, and ask, in the careful tone he used when he genuinely didn't know the answer to something, what the threshold was. How slow could the heart go before it actually meant what his instruments said it meant? I don't know, I told him, and that was true. Slower than you'd think. He's never once told me where the bottom is. Munro opened one eye at that, the way he did when he heard his own tone of voice discussed without being consulted, looked at the two of us, and went back to sleep. Tail didn't move. Didn't need to. I finished the manifests before my shift ended. Stamped the last one, slid it into the outbox, same as every other morning. Vren updated the station's intake protocol that afternoon to flag Earth working animal vitals for manual review instead of automated cutoff, and asked me, almost shyly, if I'd write the baseline numbers down somewhere he could keep. I did. 40 beats a minute, resting. Lower, working. No known bottom yet found. He filed it under Munro's name. First entry the dog ever had in a real chart.